I don't have something strong, maybe just a technical question. Um, so in the meditation, you were saying there are no objects. For instance, or you were implying that, and in a moment, you said, for instance, you open your eyes and you can see an image. But that's the only thing you see. It's not evidence that there's something out there. Um, but my wondering is, I was wondering, it almost seems like a perfect made up trick by God to make you believe that there are objects and things out there. Like, for instance, yeah, you say there, I agree there is no proof, but for instance, I see an image, I get I go forward, I see it bigger, I stretch my hand, I touch something hard, I put my ear near it, and I hear the sound it's making louder and louder. So how do you get around that? I don't know.
The trick is, so it's right that when you said it's technical, so it's about being precise.
Mm.
And so you said, for example, it seems like a trick created by God or something created to trick you. You could also say it's something created by you to trick yourself.
Yeah,
And so see how those two interpretations could both be real or true, right? So then, which one is it?
both interpretations, you mean me or God? Yeah.
Yeah. So because both are valid, both are possible. There's no evidence that it's either way. At least you don't have any evidence that it's either way.
Yeah. No,
Then
but
why?
I don't understand the, even if it's me. Oh, okay, me as a creator. Uh,
Yeah, but I'm going somewhere with that.
okay,
So
okay.
just beginning with that, because you don't have any evidence if it's A or B. Why choose A? In this case, you're not. But now, because there's no real evidence, for example, in the simulation theory, right? You know, like what the matrix is based on. So you could be inside a simulator
Mm-hmm.
or a virtual reality world. But in the matrix, it's your brain is connected to it. So in that metaphor, so the organs of perception are hijacked. So sound, sight, sensation, all of that is coming through another kind of channel. Let's suppose it's a computer program, it's virtual, it's not real in that sense. But because you can imagine this experience being like that, And if the simulation is good enough, it could be identical to this. Then why assume that version A is the real one, which is there are actual things out there that I'm perceiving?
Um, I'm not I'm not sure I understand what you're pointing.
So, because it appears that there is a world out there, doesn't mean there is one. Because it could equally be explained by a different interpretation, for example, the simulation theory, because those are both equally plausible explanations. Why assume that it's one of them without evidence?
Mm. Yeah, I'm not saying there is evidence. I seem, you know, the way that science gets to a conclusion by making many experiments and they never get to a certainty, but all experiments suggest something. In that
Yeah.
same way, like the perceptions suggest there are um,
No, because if you do follow science, it's suggesting there is no objects.
yeah, well,
Yeah, well,
yeah, I know.
yeah, I know.
I mean, no, I'm not referring to the fact of existing or not.
Science, I know, I know, but just using that the same with perception, you're saying it suggests, but it's only the interpretation of it.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's only the interpretation that creates that. And this is kind of the whole problem. So as a matter of a metaphor, suppose everybody was blind with a few exceptions. So there's very few people that see with their eyes. Now, the majority of people who are blind have an interpretation and a paradigm of what the world is. But there's those who see can explain something that those who are blind cannot know. But
Yeah.
they're unable to give any evidence. And so only through either gaining the ability to see will you know that which was being referred to.
Hmm.
And so, in a sense, that's a metaphor of what this is about. It's I'm pointing to there being a misinterpretation. That what you say, the perception makes it appear as if there's something there. And I'm saying that's not correct. It's the misinterpretation that makes it appear.
Hmm.
Once the misinterpretation is dropped, it is obvious that there's no evidence that there's anything there, that there are no objects. And that's the metaphor of gaining the ability to see. But it's actually the dropping of the interpretations, the beliefs.
But you said there's no evidence that it is a that there is no. It's obvious that there is no evidence, or it's obvious that there are no objects. If
Both.
okay.
And there's different degrees of seeing. There's different degrees of gaining the ability to see. The different degrees of awakening, where these things which, when put into words, so for example, a person in the metaphor of the seeing and the blind and the non-blind, everything that is described from what it is to see is not the seeing.
Yeah.
It's impossible to communicate, to communicate accurately and truthfully. And so, in a sense, there's nothing that can be done other than try to ignite the ability to see, try to awaken the ability to see for yourself. And in the metaphor, it doesn't apply fully, because in this case, there is an ability to drop the misinterpretations. There is a possibility. And as that happens, things will become obvious to you. So, for example, in the first thing you said, that it could be God creating something to trick me, or I'm creating it to trick myself. There is the capacity to see which one of those it is for yourself. So it's no longer a philosophical question or an intellectual dabbling. It can be known through you knowing what it is that you are doing, from you to see, I am creating this, and I am choosing the illusion and choosing to be tricked by myself. But if I say that as that is truth and it's adopted as truth, then it's another belief. Versus the experiential seeing of that. And the point is for you to see for yourself. And for you to see for yourself that of all sensation, perception, thought, all you know is sensation, perception, thought.
I mean, I see it sometimes, I intuit it sometimes, and but it seems so, like, in regular life, it seems so, it's it's like being surrounded by millions and millions of people that are all believing the same
Yeah,
interpretation.
yeah. That's the metaphor of most are blind and a few that see. who are most often ignored or seem to seen as crazy.
Yeah.
Especially in the past. Not just crazy, but dangerous.
Mm. Yeah, I just feel I need to like talk about it and bring these
Yeah, yeah, that's the
curiosities
whole point.
forward, because it's as if I've, I mean, if you're not under the spell anymore, I, I need to like continually hear people so from that process to come out of the spell more and more, I guess.
Yeah, and also one way of talking about it is that the spell is created by yourself.
Yeah.
So it's in your hands.
Hmm.
Otherwise, there could be this interpretation that there's some other entity or energy that is putting me under a spell, and I am a passive victim of that.
Yeah.
And that's where, at that level, it's a choice.
So you're at no moment when you're in your most ordinary day-to-day tasks and talking to people, at no moment you believe they are separate entities or objects. Um,
And no moment does it appear to me like that is absolutely real.
hmm.
It appears, so I experience and relate using interpretations, but knowing they are interpretations. And it's not because I'm tracking them all, because it's obvious. It's like if you're playing a video game, and I don't know if you've ever tried like a VR headset.
No.
And you could be walking on a wide flat floor, but in the VR headset you're walking on a crossing from one building to the next, and you're 500 stories high, and there's a pole that you're walking on, or a, you know what I mean, like, and there's a drop on both sides, and you're in a VR headset. You're going to get vertigo.
Yeah.
You're going to feel like, and you're going to experience the sensations of altitude and of falling. But unless you are put in that system from very young age and never taken out, you know you're in a VR world.
Right. Yeah, that's
And so
an interesting.
at no point do you fully feel like the terror of I'm going to die if I fall.
Hmm.
Not like it was. There can be the experience of the intensity of the sensation of the vertigo and the falling, and you experience that. but it is no longer to the degree of that is absolutely real and that's the only reality.
Okay. In that metaphor, most of us God put the headset on and never
We
took it
put it
off
up.
since, yeah, when we were 2 years old.
From very young, we start interpreting. There is an aspect of society being fully immersed in that feeds the absolute nature of that being real. But it's also, I think, kind of hardwired in this creation. And that's what I can say. If I put it into words, it's the freedom to be in the illusion for the thrill of being in the illusion. There's a certain kind of thrill that ends in awakening. The experience of the thrills, the excitements, and the horrors of the intensity of life and death. There's a certain kind of extreme that ends. The intensity of the contraction. And in my experience, and I think it's something that's probably quite universal, there is a loss. And that's why it's a choice. And I respect the choice of being in the illusion. Because for myself, I appreciated it. I wanted it. I wanted to know it, to experience it. But at some point, that ended. I preferred to experience it from the perspective of it's relative and not absolute. And if I'm accurate, it's actually the same thing. There's no longer for a while, for about a year, there was an experience of knowing the absolute and experiencing the relative as relative, and then there was no distinction, the relative and the absolute. To me, there's no distinction, but that's really hard to describe.